Not on. Is that better? Okay. So we don't really necessarily have to have microphones, but we're going to use them tonight because we are recording the sessions. And so if you have to miss a class, I say if you have to miss a class, let us know. And as soon as it gets loaded up, we'll give you the link to that so that you can see what's been going on in the class. So because I know you've got lives too, and I don't want you to think you have to give up everything to be here. I'm grateful for your presence, and your being present in this room is so much better than online, but we'll do what we have to get everybody caught up. So I'm going to do this. Before we do anything else, just a reminder that if you are part of church council, that means you are on the Charge Conference, which will meet tomorrow night, and that time is at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, okay? So tonight, I'm going to read these things to you because it's just too small, and I can't figure out a way to do it any better. So tonight's class is called Eyewitness Accounts. We're going to have an introduction, review of last week, introduce the panel who's going to talk to us about their experiences in foster care, and then you'll have a chance to ask them questions afterwards. And then we'll have a summary, okay? And we're going to fit all that into an hour. You'll remember from last week a couple of these. The question, bridging the scriptural mandate and the current state of foster care is, how is the church responding, if at all? And then last week we examined the latest statistical data as part of answering the question, what's the big deal? And this week we're going to hear the eyewitness accounts of those who personal experiences in foster care in our area. You'll remember from the scriptural mandate on the handouts, we looked at all the scripture, and we took away from that some of the major things are God is the creator of all things, God is our heavenly Father, and God is our provider, and that then in turn we are made in God's image and have this calling. We're called to care for orphans and widows, and as James 1 says, that is our true worship. You'll remember does my cursor show up on that? No. Okay. So the stick up there, right? That's foster care. And then Moses are the foster parents. And then Aaron and Hur on each side. This is the image I want to present to you as a remembrance of what the church is supposed to do, to come alongside and to support and help. Okay? You remember all this. I'm just kind of bouncing through it. Our current state that we talked about last week, we talked about the three major things that lead children into foster care: neglect, abuse, and drugs. Neglect is typically educational, emotional, inadequate supervision, or medical. Types of abuse are physical, emotional, sexual, and medical. And drug abuse, for example, is alcohol, prescription drugs, opioid, illicit drugs. None of these are exhaustive, but give us an idea of where we are. Bottom right, households affected by addiction of these drugs are also at a higher risk of domestic abuse, interpersonal partner violence, financial problems, food insecurity, and child neglect. We talked about Maslow's hierarchy, and we mentioned that foster care is designed from the DSS perspective to focus on that purple level, the physical needs of food, water, warmth, and rest. Sometimes it reaches into the green area, but somebody's got to come alongside to help the foster parents and to be this themselves, to draw the children in foster care into self-actualization or as high up that ladder as we can. Okay, so ours is to come alongside. We looked at the AFCARS report, the most recent one, to see the staggering numbers across our nation. We also looked at the DSS foster care dashboard and saw the numbers just in our area, Greenville County and in Lawrence County, to see what we're up against here in the southern tip of Greenville County. And then we looked at the foster care stakeholders. We mentioned DSS caseworkers, the courts and the judges, the attorneys, the guardian ad litem program, the kinship care, foster parents, the police, and then out of all that, we mentioned the one thing that's missing is us, right? And we heard the quote from Jason Johnson. I'll end that bottom part that says, "But there's hope in God's capacity to bring great beauty out of tragic brokenness. This is the gospel, the lens through which you can filter your foster parenting journey and ultimately find the strength, motivation, and courage you need to be sustained along the way. So that leads us to this summary from all that so far, is that the church must accept our scriptural mandate as followers of Christ to reclaim our identity in God our Creator and step into the ministry of foster care, and that we indeed are the missing link. Okay? We good with that so far? Everybody, we're good? Okay. Tonight we have a panel. You probably, can y'all even see that? I knew it was okay. I just want to get y'all talking because you're going to have to talk to these folks in just a minute. Can y'all see that? Okay, all right. So the very first one you need to disregard because Morgan's sitter is sick and throwing up, and so she couldn't be with us tonight. She'll come, I think we set it up for next Monday. We do have Leanne Bentley that's going to be with us. Y'all can come on up. Leanne is coming from a foster position and a legal position. We have Jessica Fairfax with us, foster and moving toward adoption and language barriers. And then we have Rebecca Howerton, who is a guardian ad litem. And then we have Steve and Lyra, who are coming up. Steve and Lyra, who are coming up to talk to us about life after foster care.
You know how shy Steve is.
Yeah. Bashful. That's not surprising. He's not wearing a macaroni hat. If Amazon doesn't have it, you don't need it. All right, so y'all, thank y'all for being here. And like I told you in the email, what I would like for y'all to do is just speak from your heart about 5 to 7 minutes. You got longer now because Morgan's not here. About your experience in foster care and just what drives your passion. And if you're out of foster care now, what are you feeling? You know, do you feel a sense of loss? Basically, just speak to the condition of your heart, and then also, if you can think of it as part of that, talk about ways that the church can come alongside and be a helpful part of the foster care system. Okay. Does anybody want to go first, or do you just want to pick left or right? All right, go ahead.
First, I don't know if okay. That picture, ironically, is the day that we signed the paperwork. I don't know if you knew this or not when you chose that picture. That is the day that we signed the paperwork to adopt Peyton and Bentley. So that was kind of...
Yeah, where I saw that from was at your Facebook?
Yeah,
okay.
That was on my Facebook. So that's kind of sweet. And I don't even know if everyone knows that Peyton and Bentley are adopted. We're church people, so they know our kids very well. Very well. They're the little hoodlums that run around the church.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. But what you said about how we're out of foster care now, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say as being in it still. We were very thankful for the people that were our caseworkers, and we did not have a good relationship with our guardian ad litem, which was...
Have you met Rebecca?
Yeah, our
she's fantastic.
It's all right. So, but I can see the role of that being very instrumental and very important. It's just we had lots of roadblocks with our case, as I'm sure all cases have in their own way. Not being in foster care anymore, but being adoptive parents, there's always something still there. Peyton doesn't understand. She was 19 months when we got her, so she doesn't understand that she didn't come out of my belly. But Bentley every now and then likes to throw in our face that we're not his real parents, which is difficult, but he's forgetting those memories that he had from his biological parents. But I remember just having an overwhelming thankfulness for the caseworkers because we went through a lot of them. A lot of cases, it does, it's short amount of times with foster parents, and kids go back to kinship care or to their biological parents. Ours was not that situation. We had them for 18 months before we went to termination of parental rights, which that was a total experience in itself. But we got a lot of attaboys, and we're so proud of you, and y'all are doing a great job, but not a lot of tangible support. So that's why when Don came to us and said we're thinking about having conversations in the community, in the church, about what the church can do to come alongside, I was very excited about that, because there's a lot of tangible things, from casseroles to, remember, we didn't have socks and diapers in the very beginning. I mean, it was the most random combination of things that we didn't have, that we were having to ask people to help us with. We had toys, we had a bed, we had the big things.
Girl toys. We didn't have any boy toys.
Yes.
We got Bentley, so it was kind of fun. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I played with Barbies for years.
So we had things that people were willing to help out with, but then you literally get dropped off, I guess it's the same way now, at DSS on the corner of the parking lot, and they're like, here, and they just hand you this child, and you sign a piece of paper, and the kid's yours. That's it. There's no, it's very weird to go through that process of actually getting a child, and then it's like, have fun, and the caseworker leaves, and there you are with the child, and it's kind of like, okay, now what do I do? So I think there are a lot of opportunities for the church to come alongside and be a proactive part of it. You keep shaking your head. You want to? So I'm interested as to what you guys think the church as a whole, or this congregation specifically, either or, could do to be helpful. And I know, when we were fostering, the average length of the caseworkers was 18 months. I don't even know if it's still 18 months.
18 months is pretty long.
We had a caseworker show up at our house. She never introduced herself. We saw her one time, and then all of a sudden she was gone. We never even knew who she was, but she came to the house because caseworkers have to do mandated reporting in the home to see how the kids are doing, that sort of thing. And she just showed up at our house. We knew that a caseworker was coming. She never introduced herself, and like I said, we never saw her again. And that was the shortest stint. And then we were just talking earlier, one of our favorite caseworkers, after about 2 years, she ended up adopting herself a child, but she's no longer with DSS anymore. And I think the adoption caseworkers stay around a little bit longer than the placement caseworkers, because the adoption side is a little bit happier than, we got people who want to adopt, and you're working on that. But even with our case, the father contested the parental rights were terminated. The father contested it, and it was going to go to court in Colombia. But luckily, somebody was able to intervene and get him to stop it, because he was doing it from prison, and it made no sense for him to continue the case. We could go on forever about our specific case, but I'm just interested as to what you guys see. And we adopted in 2017, so it's been a while. So our kids were part of that ASCAR, whatever, ASCAR.
Yeah.
They were part of that they were statistics in that situation. But I mean, they've been adopted longer than they were alive in foster care.
At Simpsonville?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you hold any, I shouldn't be asking questions. Steve, you got anything to add to that?
No, well, I was going to say, like, the Bentley's memory has gone to where it's not, I had a better bike at my old mama's house and all this other stuff, so but some of the learning steps along the way, or you can see that was a challenge that they weren't, I guess, fed from an early age. So they've stumbled learning-wise. And ours is kind of a simple case compared to some that are actually, medically fragile and stuff like that, kids like that but ours was, like Lyra said, ours was one and done. I mean, we got Peyton, and then a couple months later we got Bentley, and that was it. And Peyton and Bentley's brother lives in Spartanburg County, and he was, I think, April and Mark's 4th foster child that they were able to adopt. And they've since adopted another young lady that's not related to, I can't remember his name now, Bentley and Peyton, Josiah, Bentley and Peyton's brother. But the whole process is just overwhelming. From where the church can help, I think I see this a lot I think a lot of events in the church are less complicated. A lot of things in the church specifically are less complicated than you think they are. I mean, you get together as a family and you cook a meal, whether it's for 2 people or whether it's for 4 people or people around Thanksgiving and stuff like that. You do that. And if your fire alarm or your smoke detector goes off in the middle of the night, which it always does, 2 o'clock in the morning, the battery needs changing, you change that. But some of the things like getting the house set up to be able to foster, we had to swap out all of our smoke detectors. We lived in Neely Farm, and the smoke detectors were older than 10 years. You have to have them less than 10 years. That was a simple thing, because I was fine. I knew how to do that. They fit in the existing sockets, so all I had to do was pop the old ones out, pop the new ones in, and we were good. Had to hang a fire extinguisher on the wall in the kitchen. That didn't take long, but I'm sure there are folks out there that want to be able to do this that think that list of things is just so overwhelming, and there's not a resource to say, I got that. We know exactly what you need, because let me come into your house and see where these are and just knock this out. Or, when you get, hey, they're going to give us a kid today, and then, somebody like Lear and I go and stand in the parking lot with this person to say, okay, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be the shadiest transaction you've ever experienced in your life. Somebody's going to hand you a child in the parking lot. You're going to sign a piece of paper, not even show your driver's license or nothing, I think. I can't remember what it was. I mean, maybe we did, but it seemed so weird. I mean, we were literally in the DSS parking lot at County Square. Here's the kid, and we were like, now what?
And our friends that got the little baby, they got him in the parking lot of the mall, and he was not in a car seat, and he was 5 weeks old. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have her phone number, so I guess
I mean, it was
that was just weird. It was just kind of. Yeah.
So I'm Leanne Bentley. Today is my first day of not being a foster parent. Our license expired last month, so yesterday. But we have 2 children, my husband and I. Lila is 9, Mason is 2. Lila was actually, we adopted her via private adoption, and then we became foster parents. Mason was our 3rd placement. Our first 2 placements were long-term. We had the first little guy for about 10 months, second little guy for 7 months. Both were unified with mom. Our first little fella, we got a call at 3 a.m., picked him up in the McDonald's parking lot about 5 a.m., and took him home, and had to immediately take everything in the garage because everything smelled so foul once we got it in the house. But his mom did really well and got him back. We had a really, really sweet reunification with his mom. We're still Facebook friends. She's doing phenomenal. I don't really know much about the second one, but we took long breaks in between each placement because we had him for so long, and we were always sure to talk to our daughter. Like our first little fella, he was Kingston. Kingston's not with us because his mom's sick. You know, I never wanted to lie to her. I didn't want her to think, well, okay, so if you guys get sick, then someone's going to take me away. I mean, we just said, you know what? Not every mommy knows how to be a good mommy. And so he's going to live with us while she gets better. She's got to go to class. She's got to talk to some people. She's just got to learn how to be a good mommy, because maybe no one taught her how to be a good mommy. So he's going to live with us, and we're going to take care of him. And while he's here, he's our son. He's your brother. We're going to love on him. And so as she's getting older, you know, the whole not understanding she wasn't in my belly thing with her birth mom, I can say, you know, you grew in Shelby's tummy, but you came home from the hospital with mommy and daddy. And we hadn't gotten too far into that conversation, thankfully, about birds and bees, because I'm just going to say, I don't know. We never figured it out, so you're going to ask somebody else. But every time we got a placement, we had a good, at the church we used to go to, I think Jessica was there too, we had a good group of other moms, foster moms, adoptive parents, and it was so nice to be able to shoot a text message, hey, they're bringing us a kid tonight. All we know, he's 2. Maybe he comes with a diaper bag, maybe he comes with nothing. So, I mean, it was just amazing to open my door, and there's diapers waiting, there's bibs, there's wipes, there's Target gift cards. I mean, if nothing else, you know, you guys are like, oh, I haven't bought diapers. I don't know what kind of, it doesn't matter. A Target gift card, dinner. And my thing with that is, how can you help us? Don't wait for us to ask. Don't wait for, you know, you've had a kid for 5 months, on a random Wednesday call, say, you know what, I'm bringing you dinner tonight. Who's going to be there? Do you have soccer practice? What time can I bring it? Don't wait for us to ask, because I'm not going to ask. But, I mean, the help seemed to always come right at the beginning, and it was great. But it's in that in-between and in the middle when you're like in the throes of it. You're meeting guardian, you're meeting caseworker, you're doing bio-parent visits. And if you know that a foster parent is having a bio-parent visit, that day, bring dinner, because those kids are spinning out of control when they get home. Even the toddlers, a biological parent, birth parent, biological parent. So when they have the visits, Supposed to, yes.
I mean, ours didn't always happen because we had lots of situations, but the only time that Peyton ever bit me was after a biological parent visit, because like you said, they're spiraling out of control because they don't understand.
Yeah,
I just had to spend time with this person. Now I'm spending time with this person, and it's extremely confusing.
And their little bodies know. Their little bodies know the smells, the sounds, even when they're toddlers and babies and they can't, you know, really process it. Their bodies know, and they will have the witching hour of all witching hours and meltdowns of all meltdowns after a visit. So if you know, oh, I talked to Leanne today and she's taking Kingston for a visit, call Leanne's husband and tell him you're going to buy him dinner and have him bring it home. And that's just very helpful. That's one thing, you know, doing dinner without being asked to do it, you know, supplies, you know, when the seasons change, the seasons are getting ready to change. Hey, do you guys have winter boots? Do you guys have flip-flops? Do they need a coat? There's several churches who do foster care closets, which is really nice. Take donations from the church members, from the communities, instead of taking it to Goodwill, you know, sort it, organize it, you know, gently use stuff, or people just want to make a diaper donation. Hey, I was at Publix, they were on sale. Stick them in the foster care closet so that when you know your members getting a placement, you have them there, you can go grab them. I know the foster care closet down the road in Fountain Inn is super helpful. There's one lady, she is, I mean, always on call. I would call her and say, hey, can I come by at 4 o'clock today and switch out Mason's clothes? You know, we're getting into spring, or he's outgrown all of his pajamas.
They even give gift cards
They
for
give,
older kids.
yes.
They only keep clothes up to like satisfied.
Yep.
So they give gift cards.
And they have bottles, supplies, toys, all the baby seats and rockers and whatnot. It's just really helpful to be able to just send a text message and meet somebody down there. I actually miss being able to do that now. We finalized Mason's adoption just in February. And so now he's officially a Bentley. But at work, I used to work for an adoption attorney, so I kind of had the legal perspective of it too, which was really interesting because it was like my home life, we were in the midst of foster care. Then at work, it was foster care and adoption, so it got to be almost too much at a certain time, but it was a lot. But it was seeing how the legal side works, and it is a joke. And it's just a lot of waiting. Rebecca was our guardian, and she was precious and fantastic, and I think I used her more as a sounding board than anything, but having a guardian who cares. And it's like in that season that we're in now, where we're not a foster parent, a guardian is a place where there's a huge need. And it crosses my mind, but I'm not at a point in my life. I still work full time. I couldn't have the hours to devote to doing a guardian ad litem or being a guardian ad litem, but things like this is how I feel like I can still contribute. And I'm very public about it on Facebook that we're foster and adoptive parents. And I get a lot of messages like, hey, can I talk to you? Hey, can we go have sushi and talk about it? Absolutely. As you can tell, I'll talk to you. I'm blue in the face about it. Now, I'll tell you, I'm going to be real with you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it because, it's, in our little group text, it's like when someone gets a placement, we're like, welcome to the crazy train. We're all on it together. And it's, so, I feel like I've had a lot of different perspectives of it, but it's weird having to think now, okay, well, I'm not actually a foster parent. And Dawn and I were kind of talk about it, like it is a grieving process. It's a loss. Just like every time a foster child leaves, whether they have a beautiful reunification with their birth family, or they go to a family member, or they go on to another adoptive home, you have to grieve it. You have to grieve it. And that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're so fantastic and you're so special and you're like an angel. And I'm like, no, my heart is bigger than my head. I'm doing this. I don't know why. No. But you feel that way, and it's like you're the person standing in the middle. These kids, through no fault of their own, have come into the foster care system because in some way they were neglected or abused, and they may not even realize what those words mean. But no one cried when they were taken away. So we have them and we keep them and we love them as our own. And when they leave, we cry because we love them so much. And that's the point is, oh, well, it's going to hurt when they leave. Well, no kidding. I know. But it's worth it because that's my job. My job is to fill in the gap when no one else would, just to fill in the gap. And it's worth it. It absolutely is worth it. It doesn't make me a saint. I'm a terrible person. I'm not a good person. I'm not getting extra jewels or crowns or anything. People would tell me that all the time. I'm like, no. Especially not now with this toddler who sometimes I refer to as feral. He's really cute though. But that's the whole point of it, is to get attached. Oh, I can't do it. I would get too attached. Great, then do it. Respite. And my last point is that, my husband and I chose this. We signed up for it. Our parents did not. Our parents are now foster grandparents. And I'm telling you, they sobbed harder than we did when those kids left. Because I'm in constant contact with the caseworker, with the guardian, I'm meeting bio parents, and I'm getting that reminder every time. This is not my kid. This is your kid. I'm taking care of them while you get yourself better. Grandparents, they don't see that. They're coming to a grandparent's house. They're filling them full of sugar and Kool-Aid and whatever, and then all of a sudden they're just gone. They never get to see him again. So my mother-in-law has stood in my front yard and sobbed, and she's like, "No, I'm telling you, we're not doing this anymore." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we are." And then I go to McDonald's and I pick up another one, So, but our license ended last month. We're taking a break. If I want to stay married, we're done for now. For now, keyword. So now I got to become something.
Now you get to be part of the church's response.
Maybe so. Maybe that's it. That was my grieving process back in the fall when we signed adoption agreements is what now? Because I'm not completely closing that door.
That's twice that question has come up.
Yeah.
You said what now, and you said what now.
Yeah.
All right, who's next? Okay.
Parent. Hey, I'm Jessica. My husband and I do not like to hear myself, sorry. My husband and I got licensed spring of last year, 2021, and we got our first placement in June of 2021. And it's 2 kids. We still have them with us, so we're going on almost 18 months now, a 6-year-old and 11-year-old. I could ramble, so y'all just tell me when to shut up. Lots of things. Yeah, so we are kind of moving towards adoption. It's just been a process, and court is never what you expect it to be. And that's another of those days where it's like meals or help with childcare is needed. Like when we go to court, because my husband and I both like to be there, it's the only time we learn anything about the case. We can't take our phones in, and we might be given a time, but then we might sit for 3 hours while we wait to go in. So having friends who can pick up our children, who can do homework, who can do the whole routine, and then also give them dinner so that we can cry on the way home and eat fast food to recover. Things like that are just like these small little meaningful things that really just, they're so helpful. But so our children, we did have a really good, I thought we were very lucky at first. They came to our house, so you didn't have to go to McDonald's or the mall or anything. And I think part of that is the agency we're licensed with is really amazing. I think they will fight fire for me. The problem is DSS doesn't really listen to them either. But they showed up with our treatment coordinator and the caseworker at our house, and so they were able to stay and talk with us, and that was very helpful. But we're now on our third caseworker, who is not nearly as helpful or present or attentive. Our children, their first language was a dialect of Spanish and possibly more of a traditional Spanish, but they couldn't read in any language or anything. So they've picked up English really quickly, and my husband and I are learning Spanish, and that's much slower for our old brains to try to process. But I connected with another foster mom who gave me a bunch of Spanish resources, and just having support like that in the community. I've talked to John about like translators are needed. You know, some of their visits with a family member, sometimes they don't happen because the caseworker doesn't schedule it, so transportation is always needed from people who are willing to volunteer and go through the work to do that. But also people who can speak multiple languages to be able to translate, because sometimes our kids have been on visits, and I mean, like I said, they're 6 and 11, they're older, and things have been said to them that were pretty painful and traumatizing and triggering, and there was no adult there who understood what was being said, and we were just very fortunate that our kids felt safe enough to tell us those things. So having a translator to actually be at a visit would be huge. I think that's just a big thing, noticing the language barriers. There's so much more that people have to acknowledge with cultural differences. You know, and our caseworker's not great, and they just need more support. Our guardian ad litems we're pretty blessed to have, really, for the most part, good ones. I would say whatever, in any role that you serve, supporting foster care, volunteering, whatever that is, I feel like you have to be trauma-informed and you have to be anti-racist. Like, the things that have been said to my children have just been so damaging and hurtful to them and dehumanizing. And I don't think, you know, a lot of times when people look at the foster care system, they do look at how to support foster parents, and they feel bad for the children. And, like, the children have been left in terrible conditions a lot of times, and they need the support, but they're still humans. And whether they're toddlers with feelings that are just being processed through their body, or they're bigger kids who start to try to put words to their experiences, like, our kids have really picked up on some of the things that have been said around them and to them, and it just breaks my heart every time. So we even had foster care review board today and stuff, and anytime anyone asks me how the kids are, I'm like, the kids are great. The problem is bigger, and the problem is in the system, and the problem is in how my kids are treated. So I will stop that rant, sorry. But yeah, I think any action can be good. You know, so often the church does show up, and they're very supportive at the beginning, and they're willing to give money and everything, but really we need consistent support when we're almost 18 months in and having to take off work every other week for a court date, because 2 kids is 2 separate cases. It's 2 separate guardian ad litems. It's double things when they're not bio siblings. Having people who are willing to show up time and time again. And for my kids too, there was a lot of neglect with school and everything else, as you'd imagine. And so our 11-year-old is in 4 extra hours of tutoring every week, and it still doesn't feel like enough, and still finding the time to, like, even just arrange all that while also being the parent for him and trying to give him fun times, right? And so our friends have been huge in just being able to take the kids some and just love on them and give them time and energy and support, and just having people who are willing to just show up time and time again. Whatever you do, it just has to be consistent, because, you know, I think about it all the time with our kids, because they are old enough, they really process a lot with us, and they will literally say, like, the oldest one will say, you know, when do I have to go to another house? Like, when do I leave here? You know, he's been in and out of care before, and I think the biggest thing is for them to feel loved and to feel valued. And when they meet a new caseworker every other month, they meet somebody new who's showing up, a different guardian ad litem, whatever it is, it's not consistent. And so if the only people they have in their lives that are consistent are parents that they don't feel are permanent, and we can't say that we want to be permanent, you know, like we can only say so much. They just need more and more people who are going to show up week after week and love on them and remind them, you know, that they are valued. And even if they ever do get reunified with family, like you were saying, like they're still going to carry those attachments with them. And so I think that's a huge thing, is just the church, I think, is called to just be hands-on, whether that's volunteering for transportation or translating if you can, or showing up to help tutor, or whatever it is, just really giving of your time, which is a huge ask, right? That's our biggest value, but I think that's a big one. I'll stop. So fostering great ideas we get, and then there's another tutoring program we're doing called Read Write, and because he's a foster child, we don't have to pay. After we adopt, we'll pay. But I mean, that's a point. And like, honestly, with some foster kids, they don't even get full Medicaid, or DSS hasn't done the paperwork to make sure they get those things. And so we have had therapy services interrupted before, and then I started paying for it because DSS wasn't. And so like all of the battle with that, if there's a way to come alongside caseworkers and help them with the things that people could volunteer and help them for, that would be huge, because so much of it is just DSS is totally overworked. They have way too many kids on their caseload, and they don't have enough time in the day to get it all done. And I mean, there's a whole other rant to be had, right, about how we could support bio parents and prevent the need for foster care. But in the meantime, if we can just make the caseworker's job easier, they'd stick around, and things would get paid, and things would be done, and the kids would be cared for better.
Rebecca's going to give you time to think about this. You talk about coming alongside and just showing up. Finding foster parents, that's a hard circle to crack, you know, and I think legitimately so. And you have to be trusted first. The foster parent has to trust you, which I translate also as a child will have to trust you before they'll go with you and communicate with you. So think in the meantime, how does the church build that relationship? How do we find the foster parents around us? You know, what things do we do that build that relationship? You know, just to get to the point where we do know and we can just show up and we can communicate and we can be whatever needs to be done. So think on that for just a minute. Rebecca, share with us. You've got a unique perspective.
Well, I had an idea for that. That's not in my wheelhouse, but I know if you had the foster closet, they will come. If you build it, they will come, and then you can give them a card and say, "Here's our foster parents group that our church has," and you know, experienced foster parents can make that group up and you know do fun activities together, something like that.
Right.
But you could easily, if you're giving stuff away, they will come.
Yeah. Good.
And then as they get to know you, you can do the other things like take food and, you know, be a support to them in those other ways. But I am a guardian ad litem, and I'll tell you briefly what that is, and then if anybody has any questions, I'll let them answer them. A guardian ad litem is a volunteer that represents the best interest of the child in court. And our job is to visit once a month. At the beginning of a case, when we're first assigned, we go and do an investigation to meet members of the family, find out if there are any needs that the child has that are not being met. So we get to know the caregivers, the foster families, or sometimes it's a family caregiver, someone in the bio family's circle. And then basically we follow up with everything during the time that the case is going on. It's not always easy. Sometimes there are long days in court. You see some upset people. You make people mad when you don't agree with them. That as a bio parent, they think they're the best person to raise their child, and they get upset about that sometimes when you disagree. But that's what we do, and we try to help as much as we can. If you feel like that's something that you would like to do, please go on the website, and you can sign up to be a guardian ad litem. And I'm really interested to hear all that you have to say, though. That I know I want to hear about your bad experience. So how can we do better?
Found that everybody that I interviewed, every last one of them, had part of the system worked well and part of the system didn't work so well. Either not so well or not good at all. And Jessica, you might have been one of the more gracious ones in trying to say that everybody's overworked and all that, and they are. And I think they've been given something that they can't pull off, because they're trying to pull off what scripturally was given to the church. And and the church has let them. And so I'm not sure if, there are good and bad foster parents. There are good and bad caseworkers. There are good and bad guardian ad litems. And then, and judges are overworked, and people who are the admins around that, the whole system is overworked. And so, my struggle is finding out a way to, how do we recapture that? And we can't fix the world until we help do what we're supposed to do here in this place. And so to hear y'all, I heard about a network of parents that y'all text each other. Can y'all say something about that, about just how that came to be and how it's helpful?
Well, we're in the same text group with, I don't know how many, a dozen maybe? Yeah, I was thinking 10 to 12 is all moms, because, boys don't talk. Yeah, well, good for you. So I don't know. It just started, we were all in the same church, and it started with a handful of us. Then as someone else got licensed, we added them in. And it's just a great resource. Like I said, we just adopted Mason in February. And so once you adopt a child out of foster care, you've got to change their name with Medicaid. You've got to change their name on the Social Security card. You've got to update their birth certificate. All this stuff you ain't even thought about. Well, how the heck do you do any of that? So what do? You text your group. Tell me what to do. And so we found the magic phone numbers of who to call, and I put it on the text group. I'm on one of the Facebook groups. I put it on there. This is who you call. Ask for this person. Dial 9 star. The password is clam chowder. Whatever you got to tell them. These are things you need to know, because it's so difficult. And but the group text, I think it really just started that way. I don't go to that church anymore. Half the girls don't go to that church anymore. But we're all like, it's a foster mom group text. Hither or yon, it doesn't matter. And so, if one of you came in the crowd right now and said, let me go on that group text, absolutely. Give me your phone number, I'll put you on there. So it's extremely helpful. And the Facebook groups, people go on there, hey, we've grown out of this infant car seat. It doesn't expire for 6 more years. Come and get it. It's all free stuff. I've got an open box of diapers, but we're moving out of size 2. Come and pick it up off my porch. That is also super helpful. Or, in search of, hey, we're getting a placement tonight. These Facebook groups, these mamas jump on it. It's just, there's good support there. But like y'all said at first, it's great. But then in the consistency of it, just kind of, just make a note in your calendar 3 weeks from now. Call Jessica. Let me make you a lasagna. That's all it is.
Even just like the things you don't think about, because all those things are incredibly helpful. We do not have biological children, and I have an 11-year-old. So being able to text and be like, hi, somebody walked me through puberty, right? Really, I didn't grow up with brothers. I don't know what I'm doing with this 11-year-old boy, but having people that I can trust, right? I'm not going to just go up to any random person and say, hey, talk me through this. I'm a therapist. I have all the therapeutic skills. I can sit there and work with their emotions all day, but I do not know what to do sometimes with these big life transitions. And I'm sure if it was a baby, I'd have a ton of other questions. And so, but again, we're not going to direct those questions to just anyone, and not just anyone is going to get it. So having people who are really willing to respect a kid's privacy, it's a huge thing for us. And for me, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, like, I really value people who are going to respect my children's privacy and who are going to offer support in all the things that come up. Yeah, that's a big one.
Ask me, like, how can we gain your trust? Well, by respecting the privacy, because I don't like to. The thing is, so both of my children are adopted in very different scenarios. That is not my story to tell. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you all the nitty-gritty details about why my daughter's birth mom met us at 35 weeks pregnant and made the decision she did, or why my son came into foster care. That ain't any of y'all's business. If my daughter wants to stand up here and tell you, great, that's her story to tell. So we will share, like, especially in our little very close-knit group text, we'll share, hey, we had a visit date, we learned this. Has anyone dealt with this? How in the world do we talk through this or whatnot? And it's age appropriate, which 11-year-old boy, I'm out. I got nothing. But it's like your children are older, like, when they went through this, saying, oh, you're not my real dad. Like, my daughter's 9. It's coming. I know it's coming. So I'm going to call you and see how you handle that. But it is respecting the privacy. I mean, our son obviously doesn't look like us. My daughter, ironically, looks just like me. Even her birth mom has said that. But, so sometimes it's super obvious that your children are adopted and sometimes not. But it's gaining the trust and, the respect that, you're not going to share with them maybe something I shared with you that it's not age appropriate for them to learn yet, because, we have DSS binders this thick with horrible things that we know about our children's biological families. And it's like, when or do I talk about this? How do we approach this? Jessica's a therapist. I'm going to call her and ask her.
Well, and that's the other part of it. And I have family members that I have stopped calling and trying to check in with because they could not respect not asking questions. But even thinking about that, like, foster parents often can suffer from secondhand trauma. We hear all the things. We deal with the kids' tantrums and with their trauma responses. And their children, who often are maybe just starting therapy for the first time, so they don't have the coping skills and they don't know how to sit there and say, this scent at this visit on my bio family member has really triggered this. Like, that's not going to happen. And so a lot of times we're dealing with their trauma, and it can be really easy to take that on as trauma. And so part of respecting that is, of course, respecting the kids' privacy, and also respecting that, like, we have a lot that we're holding. So you might need to say, hey, I know a great therapist, and I'm always offering referrals, but yeah, just respecting that for the foster parent too, that it can be traumatizing. And that sounds horrible to say. It's just that we don't want to sit there and talk about it every day.
So the role of a foster parent it's a pretty wicked ride, right? Everybody's not called to that, right? And so I'm curious what questions y'all might have either about being a foster parent, because you may be interested in that, about being a guardian ad litem, you may be interested in that, about what was life like as you're going through the process, or anything related to the church coming through our scripturally mandated response to come alongside. For me, there's no way I would do what y'all do. It's just not in my DNA. But to come alongside you, that very much is, right?
Something.
Right.
Not everyone's called to be a foster parent, but everybody can do something.
Right.
Even if you're just praying for us.
This one on?
Hello. Many years ago, we belonged to a church, and all this just brought the memory back. But I think it was once a month we would have the foster care parents come. We would have babysitters, and we would serve them food. To me, that is something that the church can do very easily.
Yes, I think our old church, was it once a quarter? They did foster parent night out or something, and once a Friday, we could dump our kids off from like 6 to 9. Yeah, go have dinner by yourself, talk about things you need to talk about.
They
You know,
could leave their kids or do something there in the church. Yeah, and since we are fortunate enough to have Lyra and Steve, it's something that they could probably initiate just to the community, or
Chief?
Say something macaroni's right now. I'm like,
Let's give it to whoever has another one. Who's got, there you go.
I don't really have a question because you guys did a great job answering everything, but something probably nobody at the church knows, but I think I told Don, I do have a degree in social work from many years ago, and it's a very high stressful job and very traumatizing to see at the end of the day as you're walking out to have somebody pull in with 2 kids and nothing. The first time in my life I've ever seen a young toddler that was abusive to other kids because that's what he learned, and physically abusive. Because we were observing the kids so we could tell the foster parents we were trying to find at night to come get them or to place them, and he's biting and hitting and trying to draw blood on his brother because that's what he knows. And it's very sad, it's very hard, and I commend all of you because my heart couldn't do it, so it's
Me if I'm wrong, but I feel like another area of this, if we're also thinking about the caseworkers and, everyone kind of dealing with that in the system, I mean, would it be helpful for the church to kind of come alongside them in the same ways we're talking about, taking meals, like taking office supplies, so maybe my caseworker can actually make her to-do list, but, I mean, sorry. But things like even just like gift baskets or ways to show love on that side of things too, because I know, like, I try to be kind and everything, but I know they have way more on their plates, and I feel like if they also felt that support, I mean, it's certainly not the same as a better paycheck and better hours and everything, but it's something that could at least encourage and love on them.
I heard like Grace and Fellowship and some other of the bigger churches do that. But there's like, I think I heard 220 caseworkers in Greenville County. So that's a little bit,
On a Lawrence County.
it's a little bit bigger than what we can pull off, but we can come alongside those folks that do that. And I think the Greenville County area adoption and foster parent group, I think they do a meal train, so we can come alongside that. But I kind of get the feeling that we're more geared toward foster parents. But there is that need, and I think it would be a wonderful thing for us to kind of feed into. So yeah, I like that idea.
I think the, and I don't know how to describe this, like a notebook or skeletons, like the bones of a system is, okay, how do you get connected with the bigger churches that are doing that are helping the foster care workers, the social workers and stuff like that? Okay, can you assign us 3 or 4 of them down here so we can give those 3 or 4 Starbucks cards, or call on a Tuesday, say, hey, thinking about you, hope you had a good day. I know you had a really rough case, or I saw something in the news yesterday and I thought about you, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if there's this kind of overarching network, but how do you even get that? It's like finding the foster families local to this church so you can come along and, have a parents' night out where they, can they drop the kids off? What do we need to do so that can happen, number one? Or if they can, and if it's just bring in, let's just feed you guys a meal and we'll play games in the yard or stuff like that, because you'd have to be a respite care license to drop kids off here. So that would be another complicated thing, I think. Oh, okay, never mind then. Well, good. But, so that's a you can find the local foster families, but how do you find the guardian ad litems and say, we appreciate what you're doing because you're helping, a family that lives next to us,
Yeah. So
Have a group called the Friends of the Guardians Ad Litem, and you can make donations to that. I know one thing that has been popular with some of our guardians are on a fixed income, And a gas card is a big help because we've got to go out of county a lot of times. Our kids can be placed all around the state, and we're supposed to visit them once a month. So that would be something helpful. You know, the Friends of the Guardian Ad Litem is a group that could help you there. And Fostering Great Ideas is a good group if you have members that want to be a tutor or a mentor. They can help you. get in the right
David's going to be
place.
here Thursday night. Yeah. Yeah. David said he can do his thing in 30 minutes. We'll see. So I like the coming alongside the Guardians Ad Litem. And as I said, you know, doing the caseworkers may be a little bit big for us. You know what I hadn't heard in all the interviews that we did, I did hear come alongside them, but I didn't hear come alongside the middle agencies like the Epworth folks or the Miracle Hill folks. And so maybe that's an area. I need to be quiet. What other questions y'all have?
I was thinking of not to bring politics in, but, you know, being the voice for the children and maybe the foster parents in that, because, you know, when people talk about, oh, we need a road fixed, or there's potholes on this road, or we're closing this road, everybody's screaming and yelling. But when they're making budget cuts to foster care, the kids and that, nobody says a word. So.
Also has a legislative or advocacy wing. I don't know that much about it, but if you look on their webpage, they are advocating for certain laws that could help, and they may have ways that you could assist with that. Maybe sending letters, you know, sending emails to Congress people or something.
Y'all like to keep it to 7 o'clock. Michelle, the same thing. So will help me thank them for being here. And as I mentioned, next time, our next class session is Thursday at 6. We're looking at the call in this one. We're going to, that's what we're going to do, review previous sessions. We're going to brainstorm how we can respond. All the things that are flying through your head now, I'd suggest you jot them down before you forget them. Talk about how Hopewell is equipped and positioned and how we're going to mobilize. There's a reason that you were invited to this class. It's because you direct and lead a ministry area. So I'm going to challenge you individually. And then I'm going to challenge you to challenge your groups, your ministry groups, so that we can have a full church response. And I can't tell you how that looks. I can as a pastor, but I can't as a doctoral candidate. So I'm going to guide you in a certain way, and then allow you to proceed for a while, trying to encourage others to become active in this new ministry. I will ask you for a full 5-year commitment so that it sinks in and it becomes part of our DNA. It needs to be something that outlasts a United Methodist pastor. Okay, it needs to be yours and something that's in your DNA, so that whenever pastors come and pastors go, it just keeps on going, right? And then lastly, David White. I don't know if y'all can read that or not. Yeah, he'll be here. He's supposed to come in about 6:30. He's got a thing in Malden he's doing. But he's got another load of information. It's just phenomenal. So that's a look at Thursday night, okay? So let's pray. Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for all who have traveled to this place and have shared ideas and whose hearts are burning even now. God, don't let the spark or the flame go out. Continue to fan us into action, and let this be a place not that draws fame, but one that takes your name into the world and is evident in coming alongside and bringing aid and just loving on those who love on others. Well, God, love us as you always have, and then use us up day by day for ministry in your name. We pray this in Christ's holy name. Amen. Thank y'all so very much.